Welcome to the 2022 Preseason Aquatic Facility Safety Meeting. Thanks for joining us again for this year's safety meeting. So let's kick things off by meeting your friendly neighborhood health inspector. If you have a pool or spa or aquatic facility in North Richland Hills, you're going to be dealing with one of the three lovely people on the screen. And if you can't remember who your health inspector is, just email consumerhealth@nrhtx.com. That's the email at the very bottom of the slide. And all three of us have access to that email, so we'll be able to get you straightened out if you contact us at that email. Our emergency number is also at the bottom of this slide. It's the 24-hour non-emergency dispatch for North Richland Hills. So if it is after business hours or on the weekend and you run into an emergency, let's say a car drives through your pool fence or you have a near drowning, feel free to call that number and one of us will get to you as quickly as we can. So let's talk about why we're here today. It boils down to the three reasons on the slide. We want to prevent people that are using your facilities from drowning, from getting hurt, or from getting sick. So during this class, we're going to talk about how to prevent drownings and other types of injuries on your property, what's new with aquatic facilities in Texas and in our area, and we'll review what you're required to do by ordinance in NRH in regards to your permitted aquatic facility. Texas and Tarrant County have a drowning problem. It affects both adults and children, but drowning is the second leading cause of death for Texas kids. Since 2011 to March 1st of this year, 2023, 992 children have fatally drowned in the state of Texas. That would fill about 14 full-size school buses. The consensus is that we're leading the U.S. in numbers of fatal child drownings, usually tying with Florida, and Tarrant County leads Texas. The tragedy is that every one of those fatal drownings was preventable. By paying attention to the things we're going to discuss in this class, you're going to make it less likely that someone on your property is included in these numbers moving forward. And you all have a very important role to play in preventing drowning and preventing people from getting hurt on your property. Most of the rules that you're required to follow are based in best practices for drowning and injury prevention. We call them the layers of protection. Because drowning is not something that can be prevented by taking one step. We can't say, hey, teach everybody to swim and then nobody can drown, because even if you know how to swim, you can still get hurt, you can still get tired, stuff happens. So drowning is really difficult to prevent because you need multiple steps in place, multiple safeguards to keep people safe. And that's why we call it the layers of protection. You're trying to layer on as much protection as you can around people so that they either don't have the possibility of drowning or you have what you need to rescue them in time before there's some negative outcome. And you guys are going to recognize a lot of the layers of protection that are in this graphic. It's things like a fence, safety signage, safety equipment like the ring buoy or the shepherd's crook so that you can rescue somebody, safe drain covers, that kind of thing. And those are your responsibility to provide for your property. And one thing that we would really like to see is that everybody familiarize themselves with the ABCs of drowning prevention. That's the graphic on the left side of the screen. It's basically the layers of protection repackaged in a way that is easy for anybody to understand. You can use this to educate visitors and residents on your property about how to protect themselves and their family from drowning. And when they protect themselves, they're also protecting you from those negative things that can happen. You guys are not alone in this. You have an enormous opportunity to get the word out to people about this problem. And we have resources to help you. The website on the right that's on top is NRH Water Safety 365. That's the city's drowning prevention website. And we have the graphics for the layers of protection and the ABCs of drowning prevention on that website for you to share. There's some flyers and posters that you can hang up. There's a rhyming storybook about water safety that's also a coloring book that you can download and print out. It's aimed at kids and teaching kids about water safety, but it also has a lot of information for parents included in that book on how to protect their family.
There's lesson plans for childcare age kids. There's a lot of good stuff on there. If you haven't seen that website, really recommend checking it out, because we'll talk to people when we're on your property. If we see something, we'll talk to residents and try to educate them, but we're only there once a month for maybe an hour or so. You guys are there all the time. You're going to see when there's a herd of 10-year-olds that doesn't have an adult in sight, hanging out at one of your pools, and you're going to know how dangerous that is. You're going to be able to see if there's kids in the water and the adult isn't paying attention and doesn't have eyes on them. And you're going to know that drowning's completely silent and quick, and be able to get some kind of message across that might save somebody's life. The website at the bottom, nrhtx.com/aquatic facilities, that's the consumer health website for public pools and spas. That's specifically for you guys. And we've put a ton of resources on there for you. We have an opening checklist that is basically our inspection checklist. And when you're ready to open your pool or spa for the season, you can look at that checklist and go down line by line and make sure that you're good to go before we ever show up. We also have water chemistry logs that we've already made for you. If you don't have any or you want something more robust, feel free to use ours. They're on there. And there are a lot of fact sheets and handouts that we've found useful over the years to hand out, things that we've created because of questions that people have asked. If you haven't checked out that website, also a really good one to check out. So I want to just roll through the ABCs of drowning prevention briefly and walk you through each one. The letter A is for active adult supervision. And we say active adult supervision because drowning is totally silent. It doesn't happen like in the movies when there's a lot of screaming or splashing when somebody's drowning. A person who's drowning, they can't scream or splash. So there's almost no noise at all when it starts to happen. And it happens so quickly, guys. In less than 2 minutes, that person is gone. So it's really important that when kids are in the water, there's an adult that has eyes on them. They're not distracted by cell phones or talking with parents or doing something else. They have to have eyes on those kids in the water so that they don't miss that crucial moment that they could step in and save that kid. And one of the best tools for this is going to be the Water Watcher tag. We have a lot of these that were given to us by Safe Kids North Texas and Cook Children's Hospital. If you want some for your property, just reach out to us and let us know. But in the picture, you can see that the adult is wearing a card on her wrist, on a bracelet. That's the Water Watcher tag. It basically says, when kids are in the water, I'm the one that's responsible for watching them. And it's great when you're having a pool party or multiple people using the pool, because one adult can wear this card and keep eyes on kids in the water for 10 or 15 minutes. And then at the end of that 10 or 15 minutes, they switch that card over to another adult, and that adult becomes the water watcher. So this is a concept that we want you guys all to be familiar with and encourage on your property to help protect people. Our water safety program created some new displays this year. So if you're interested in using any of these displays at your resident meetings or having us come and talk to your residents at your pool parties or resident events, let us know. We're happy to bring them out. You can even set them up in your lobby for a few days if you want. We also have some great social media resources for you, and we invite you to follow us on Facebook and Twitter and use our posts to talk with your residents. Our Facebook address and Twitter address are up on the screen, and starting on spring break, we post every day something about water safety. One last plug before we dig into all things aquatic. Mosquitoes are already starting to emerge in our area, and with mosquitoes come West Nile virus and other mosquito-borne illnesses. The map is showing where West Nile virus activity occurred in 2022 in Texas. And you can see that Tarrant County is one of those places where West Nile is active. It's possible that we'll have another active year for West Nile virus and other mosquito-borne illnesses. So we want to remind everyone how important it is for you, your staff, and your residents to protect yourselves from mosquito bites. You can protect yourself from mosquito bites by following the 5 Ds. They're listed on the screen, and they are dress, drain, DEET, dawn and dusk, and doors. So dress just means you wear long sleeves and pants when you're outdoors. Makes it a lot more difficult for mosquitoes to chew on you. Drain means that you look for and you either drain or treat standing water on your property. If you have standing water on your property and you're not sure how to address it, feel free to reach out to any of us at Consumer Health. We'll help you the best that we can. And if you see any standing water on public property, make sure that you report it to us so that we can take care of that from our end. The third D is DEET, and it's a little misleading. What we really mean is use an EPA-registered insect repellent. It used to be that DEET was the only EPA-registered insect repellent, but now there's several different types out there, including oil of lemon eucalyptus and picaridin that are based in natural products. Personally, I like to use picaridin because it doesn't leave that weird odor and greasy feeling. But we really need you to wear an EPA-registered insect repellent. It keeps mosquitoes from biting you. Make sure you wear it on the outside of your clothes or on your skin directly if it's exposed. The fourth D is dawn and dusk. The mosquito that spreads West Nile virus really likes to be active during dawn and dusk. So if you can avoid being outdoors at those times, you're going to avoid a lot of those mosquitoes. And the fifth D is doors. And what we really mean is check for and repair gaps in doors and window screens to keep mosquitoes from getting into your house.
Texas has officially adopted the 2018 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code statewide, and it's in effect as of September 2020. The most recent Texas Public Pool Code also adopted the 2021 International Swimming Pool and Spa Code in January 2023. You can find this code at the website at the bottom of the slide. The International Swimming Pool and Spa Code is a code that was developed by the International Code Council and the Association of Pool and Spa Professionals. It applies to both public and residential aquatic facilities, and it's focused on construction and design of swimming pools and spas. This code really applies to you if you're building a new pool or spa, remodeling your pool or spa, or replacing equipment, or repairing your existing pool or spa. It doesn't generally address daily operational standards. Texas has also adopted new and additional rules for public pools and spas statewide, and if you're watching this video, you're considered a public pool or spa. This code contains rules for both construction and daily operation of public pools and spas, so it will affect both new and existing facilities.
One of the many new changes required by the new codes is that there are many new signs required in the pool and spa enclosure. There are about 8 new signs required for pools and about 8 new signs required for spas. I'm not going to get into the details of this, but the easiest thing that you can do is go to our website, it's at the bottom of this slide, and find the handout that says Aquatic Facility Signage Requirements. And that handout goes into detail about what these signs are, what they need to say, how big the letters need to be, all of that good stuff. If you have any questions about it, ask your health inspector. We are really encouraging everybody to get the new signs in place before the swim season begins so that you're ready and you're fully in compliance beforehand. That's what we're pushing for, but if you run into problems or questions on this, reach out to us and we'll work with you.
There was a slight change under the new rules to the water chemistry levels and rules for public pools. A couple of years ago, the state added limits for combined chlorine, ORP, or oxidation reduction potential, alkalinity, calcium hardness, and algae. They also required that the water be balanced every 10 days. And under the latest rules, records must now be kept on site for at least 3 years. This was formerly every 2 years. So don't forget to keep your records for an extra year. Okay, just want to remind everybody again that one of the new water chemistry requirements with those new pool rules is that water has to be balanced at all times. That means that it's not too acidic and it's not too basic or scaling, and that your equipment is going to be protected. So there are different factors that we look for when we're talking about water chemistry. And there's certain things that they have to be in the acceptable range before you can let swimmers get in the water. Things like pH and chlorine and cyanuric acid or stabilizer.
Water balance goes a step further, and it has you look at other things to make sure that you're not going to damage your equipment or your plaster. And most pools use the Langelier Saturation Index. So long story short, you plug numbers into the formula on the screen, and the water is balanced if the number that you come out with is between negative 0.3 and positive 0.3. So you can calculate this formula by hand, but there are also a lot of tools out there that you can use to calculate this for you, and you don't have to worry about doing heavy math. If you're really not feeling up to doing a bunch of math and calculating things out by hand, there's a lot of tools available to you. And to throw it out there, your health inspector is also available to you. If you have any questions about how to calculate water balance, just reach out to us. We'll be happy to spend an afternoon with you explaining how to do this and how to use whatever tool you decide to use to do it. One of the best tools that you have when you're trying to figure out water balance comes in your test kit. Most people use a test kit, and if you're using a Taylor test kit, they have a water balance calculator inside the test kit. It's that little wheel that's made of paper. If you've ever wondered what it's for, this is what it's for. You move things around on the wheel and it automatically calculates water balance for you after you've found your temperature and your total alkalinity and those other levels. So I have a YouTube video that I've found that really explains how to use this well. I encourage you to watch that, and if you have any questions about how to use it, reach out to your health inspector. You can also find a ton of online calculators that you just plug in the values that you got for total alkalinity, calcium hardness, temperature, all of that good stuff, and it will spit out the number for you at the end and tell you whether your water is balanced or not. When you start to look at your water balance, you're going to get your water unbalanced eventually. And you're going to run into the situation of trying to figure out what to fix first. So when that happens, this slide is here just to kind of give you some guidance of what to do when it happens. The first thing to remember is that we're still focused on pH, disinfectant, which is free chlorine or bromine levels, and cyanuric acid. Those three parameters are what are important for health or safety. If those aren't in the acceptable range, it's not safe for people to swim. So you always have to make sure that you get those into an acceptable range before you do anything else. But once those are in the acceptable range and they're stable, if your water's still unbalanced, the next parameter that you want to focus on is total alkalinity. Address that next if you're trying to get your water back in balance. And when you address total alkalinity, address it first and then let it sit for a day. Don't try to address alkalinity and pH and calcium hardness and everything else on the same day. Buy what you need to get the alkalinity up or get it down. If you have any questions on how to do that, reach out to your health inspector. Wait a day and then try to address some of the other factors. Right? If you've addressed total alkalinity and your water's not balanced, the next parameter to focus on is pH. And this is only if your pH started in the acceptable range of 7.2 to 7.8. Okay? If you address alkalinity and pH, water's still unbalanced, then go to calcium hardness, and from there, other factors if you need to. By that point, you probably won't need to. Okay? If you're stumped, contact your health inspector. So the whole purpose of this slide is to let you know that if you are building something new, if you're remodeling, if you're repairing something, if you're changing a piece of equipment, even if you think you're plugging in the same type of piece of equipment into its place, you need to talk to your health inspector first. Don't take your fence down. Don't change your drains, especially, without talking to your health inspector, because everything goes wrong when this happens. Don't believe the contractor when they tell you that you don't need a permit. Don't believe them when they tell you you don't need to worry about talking to the health inspector about this, because it never ends well, okay? We do have a plan review checklist. It's located at the site at the bottom of the screen, and our plan review checklist takes NRH ordinance, state pool code, and 2018 ISPSC all at once and puts them together in that one document. So check that out if you're planning to do something new, and also please, please, please talk to one of us. And the reason that we push this so hard is because when you change equipment, both pool code and plumbing code have really specific requirements for pool equipment, especially pool and spa heaters. And a lot of the times a licensed plumber has to install these. A building permit is required. If the heater is over 200,000 BTUs, Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation is required to get out and inspect. And the picture on the screen is from one of our facilities that decided to change out their heater without talking to the health inspector. The person that came in to do it was a handyman, didn't know what they were doing, managed to take out one of the pumps when they were trying to put this in, did some illegal electrical work, did some mechanical ventilation work that was not up to code, and it shut down the facility for several days. They had to cancel all of their swim classes and upset everybody because they did all of this without thinking to check with the health inspector or anybody else first. So just a heads up, don't change anything until you talk to us because it's a mess for everybody. What we're trying to prevent when we tell you, hey, talk to us before your equipment changes, is an incident like the one that happened in Marysville, Ohio this year. At the Hampton Inn in Marysville, Ohio, they had an indoor pool, an indoor spa. The indoor spa was heated, and 13 people were sent to the hospital with carbon monoxide poisoning. They're still investigating this incident, but they believe that the source of the carbon monoxide was from the spa heater or the carbon dioxide system for the spa. So one thing that we'd like all of you, especially if you have an indoor pool or spa that's heated this year, to do is install a carbon monoxide monitor in your pump room and another one in the swimming area. You can get 2 of these for about $50 on Amazon. They're battery powered, and it's just an alarm that goes off if the concentration of carbon monoxide gets too high and it becomes dangerous. If you're using a carbon dioxide system to acidify your spa or your pool, you also need to make sure that you install a carbon dioxide monitor so that the level of carbon dioxide doesn't go too high and become dangerous in your pump room area. The moral of the story here is talk with your health inspector before making any changes to equipment. Not including this incident, since 2012, there have been at least 86 carbon monoxide events at hotels, and 19 of those were traced to a pool or spa heater, and that resulted in 138 injuries and 3 deaths. So by taking these steps now, you're going to be able to prevent that at your facility.
And there are a lot of new rules for spas in the new swimming pool codes. We really recommend, if you have an existing spa, get with one of us or look at the new codes to see how your existing spa may fall short of the new codes. Most of these come from 2018 International Swimming Pool and Spa Safety Code. A couple of the new codes that we know about are that if the spa is using an automatic chemical dispenser, you also have to have an automatic pH and ORP or oxidation reduction potential controller working in concert with the chemical dispenser. This requirement makes sense because the spa doesn't have a lot of water. If you start injecting chemicals into the spa, it doesn't take much to really throw off that water chemistry and possibly make it dangerous. That controller is just a backup to try and keep your chemical dispenser from dispensing 3 gallons of acid into a spa that might hurt somebody when they step into it. Another rule is that the spa emergency shutoffs have to be equipped with audible and visible alarms now. So when somebody pushes that button or pulls that lever, there has to be both an audible and a visible alarm that goes off. And when you get those alarms in place, there's an additional sign, which is the sign on the screen, that needs to be posted as well inside the enclosure. Basically saying, if the alarm's going off, do not use the spa.
this seems like a really good time to bring up chemical interlock safety. And there's a video about this that explains it better than I ever could. I really encourage you to visit the website at the bottom of the screen and watch this video. It's less than 10 minutes long, and it's really amazing. I'm not sure why I couldn't get it to work for the PowerPoint, but you're stuck with me talking about this. So if you have an automatic chemical dispenser, this applies to you. Whether it's for liquid chlorine or acid or any other kind of chemical that's automatically getting injected into the flow. Chemical interlock safety means that when the power goes out or your flow rate drops, that the chemical dispenser stops working. Okay, and this is something that your electrician can check for you or can put in place for you. You need to make sure that you have this in place, because a lot of pool chemicals are incompatible with each other. You think acid and chlorine, when they mix together, they create chlorine gas. It can hurt people, it can kill people. It's happened in other places in the country. So make sure that you have this in place. If you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to one of us. All right, and if you're wondering about chemical interlock safety and whether your system has it, one of the things that you can look for is a pressure switch on your chemical dispenser. So if you're using an automatic chemical dispenser, that's something different than a tablet feeder. You're feeding liquid acid or you're feeding liquid chlorine. You're going to look for a pressure switch on your system. I'm showing you a picture from a pump room of one of our folks, and the pressure switch is that little blue box to the left. If you are not sure if you're looking at the pressure switch, if it's not labeled, ask your health inspector, or adjust the chemical feed, and when the system is running, then turn your pump off and see if your chemical dispenser system shuts off automatically. If the chemical interlock safety is there, then it should shut off automatically when the pump turns off.
Okay, y'all, I know that is a lot of new information to throw at you really fast, but we're almost to the end of the class. This is probably the most important section of the class here at the end, so please kind of wake up a little bit. I promise next year, if we're in person, we're going to play Jeopardy and we're going to eat donuts, okay? But let's talk about what you need to do before you open your pool this year. The first thing you need to do is make sure that one person on your staff is a registered certified pool operator. That means they've gone to the CPO class and gotten their certificate, and then they've brought that certificate up to City Hall, to Neighborhood Services, and gotten their registered CPO card from Consumer Health. If you have any questions on how to do this, reach out to us. The other thing you need to make sure you do is get an electrician out again to look at your pools and spas and your pump room, fill out the annual electrical inspection form, and have that ready for us because we'll need a copy of it for your opening inspection. Third thing on the list is attend this safety class. After this class is over, complete the 10-question quiz that's on the website and email that back to us at consumerhealth@nrhtx.com. All right, and lastly, pass your Consumer Health opening inspection. It's mid-March, so we're starting to get out and do preliminary pool inspections. The way this works is that your health inspector does a preliminary full inspection to try and find out, is there anything that's gone wrong since last year? What problems do we need to fix before the pool reopens? And we'll give you a list of those things that you need to fix. Once those things are fixed and your water chemistry is balanced, everything's working again, you call your health inspector back out for an opening inspection when you're ready. And after you pass that opening inspection, you can open the pool for the year. Now, all the pool permits expire on April 1st every year. So if you close for the season at all, your gates have to lock and close to residents and visitors on April 1st. If you're open year-round, you have to pass an opening inspection by May 1st. Otherwise, you're going to have to close your doors unless your health inspector says otherwise. If you have any kind of question about this process, you need to reach out to us. If you've taken this class before, this slide is going to be really familiar to you because it's the most important slide of the entire class. If you've been sleeping up till now, pay attention to this slide because you really need to know this information, okay? The conditions on the screen, if any of these exist, it's your responsibility to close your pool or spa and then lock the gates and doors to the enclosure so that your residents and visitors cannot access it. We're going to walk through each one of these conditions one by one, right? So the first one is if your water chemistry is not in acceptable range. And when we talk about water chemistry, we're not talking about calcium hardness, okay? We're talking about the water chemistry that's necessary for health and safety. That's going to be free chlorine, pH, and cyanuric acid. Now, there have been a couple of parameters added in with the rule changes, like combined chlorine, that could be necessary for health and safety. We still haven't quite figured out which ones are going to be necessary or not. But these three, if they're out of range, the pool has to close because it's not going to be safe to swim. First is free chlorine. It has to be between 2 or 8 parts per million if you're using cyanuric acid or stabilizer. If you're not using cyanuric acid or stabilizer, it's 1 to 8 parts per million. Free chlorine is important because it's what's killing bacteria and parasites and viruses in your pool water and keeping them from infecting people that are swimming. Okay. The second health and safety chemistry parameter is pH. pH has to be maintained between 7.2 and 7.8. The reason for this is because at that level of pH, free chlorine is best able to do its job. And also, it's much less likely that you're going to burn somebody's eyes or skin if the pH is in that neutral range. The third parameter that you really need to pay attention to is cyanuric acid. It has to remain less than 90 parts per million, because at 90 parts per million, it won't let free chlorine do its job and disinfect the pool water. You're not required to have cyanuric acid or stabilizer. Okay, and if you're an indoor pool or a spa, you're not allowed to use cyanuric acid or stabilizer. But if you have it, you need to make sure that it stays less than 90 parts per million. Okay, moving on. If the bottom of the pool or the drains aren't visible, you have to close it. Somebody could get down there and you wouldn't know they're down there if you can't see them. So that's the whole reason that condition exists. Also, if you can't see the pool drains, odds are your water chemistry is not in the acceptable range. Okay? You also need to make sure that you're looking at your drains and your drain covers every day, because if those covers are damaged or missing or anything damages your drains, it's not safe for people to swim. The pool pump's like a vacuum cleaner, and if somebody gets down there and those drain covers are damaged or there's something wrong with the drain, the pool pump will suck them down onto that drain, and they won't be able to come off until the pool pump goes off. So really important, again, if drain covers are damaged or missing, close the pool. If your pool pump stops working, pool or spa is closed. Okay? The circulation equipment's necessary because it helps circulate those chemicals and keep that water chemistry good. If the emergency phone's not working, in most cases, you're going to have to close off the enclosure. There's certain situations where we can allow you to have a temporary emergency phone or have staff out there, monitoring to make sure that if there's an emergency, they can call 911. Just reach out to your health inspector if that happens and it's something you need. All right, if your fence or enclosure has been damaged, you have to secure it. And until it's fixed, nobody can use the pool or spa. Right? Your gates and doors, you also need to check and make sure that they are self-closing, self-latching, they're still in good shape. Because if they're not working, you need to lock them and secure them. If your safety equipment is missing or damaged, you have to close until you can replace that safety equipment. So that's going to include your shepherd's crook, your ring buoy with your safety line, your float lines that separate the shallow from the deep end, any of your safety signage, or your backboards. If the emergency shutoff for your pool or your spa isn't working, that's a problem that would require you to close the pool. And we have a catch-all phrase at the end that says, any other potentially hazardous condition. That means maybe somebody got a little rowdy on a weekend and threw a bunch of glass bottles into the bottom of your pool. Broken glass is a problem. It could cut up somebody's foot. You've got to close at that point until you can address that situation and get it fixed. Maybe a tree falls into the pool enclosure. Maybe a car goes through it. I feel like knocking on wood while I'm saying this. If any other potentially hazardous condition exists, it's your responsibility to make sure that your residents and visitors cannot get to that pool. All right, and really the message I'm trying to get across, don't forget, if there's something hazardous, you need to close your pool and then post it as closed on the gates and doors. Okay, it has to be locked to residents and visitors and then posted that it's closed. If you guys do this on your own before we show up for a safety check, there's no penalties assessed by Consumer Health. We're going to show up and say, oh, look, there's a hazardous condition there, but you have locked your gates, you've secured your enclosure, you're doing exactly what you want to do. Your health inspector's going to be super happy. They're going to tell you good job. And you're going to avoid any situations that might come out of that hazard that would be bad for you. Okay? The other thing we want to get across is don't change any of your equipment, your decks, your fences, or especially your drains without first talking to your health inspector. And if you're replastering, you don't have to get a pool permit, but we're never going to have our feelings hurt if you call us and say, hey, I'm replastering. Can you come out and look at the tile? Can you come out and make sure that everything looks good? We're going to be happy to do that for you because we want to avoid problems that we can catch on the front end and not have you go back and fix later. So let's look at some inspection photos from the last year as kind of case studies in when you would need to close the swimming pool or spa.
Okay, so this is one of those situations that is extraordinarily dangerous, and it's guaranteed to make your health inspector very, very unhappy. Health inspector showed up for this inspection, and it was at a hotel. The pool gate was propped open, so the pool was accessible completely to any child that wanders away when nobody's paying attention. And you can't see the drains in this pool. It's too cloudy. So the danger here is that little one sneaks away, like little ones are apt to do. They go into the water and nobody's able to see them because you can't see the bottom of the pool because it's too cloudy. Here's another example of an unsecured pool. This pool's under construction. And there is water in the bottom of the excavation. You just can't see it in the picture. But it really wouldn't matter because whether there's water in the bottom of that hole or there's just a giant hole, it's still really, really dangerous and considered an attractive nuisance to kids. So this construction company did the right thing by putting up a 6-foot tall security fence around the pool while it was under construction. But they did the wrong thing because they all went to lunch and left the gate open. So this site is unattended, and again, the danger is that a child wanders away and gets in there and gets hurt. This is another inspection from last year. Pool is green, you can't see the bottom, and the gate is locked open, so it won't latch. The gate just kind of swings freely, and you can pull on it and open it up right away. Again, super dangerous situation. Kid's going to wander in and nobody's going to know they're there. This is another inspection from last year. Same thing. Gate's been locked open. There's nobody on site. They have it posted closed, but it doesn't matter because anybody can get into that pool area. And again, it's right next to a parking lot. It's surrounded by buildings. There's a ton of kids running around. As operators of a commercial pool, it's your responsibility to make sure that the pool is secured. It's required by law. So please tell everybody that you can, do not lock gates open, do not prop them open. And last inspection photo from last year that was a bad photo. Don't do work on your decks or your equipment without talking with your health inspector, because if they don't do the work correctly, the deck ends up getting damaged. And this pool has been closed for close on 2 years now because they did a lot of work and the deck is now starting to buckle, creating trip hazards all over and leaks, and this pool's closed. Okay, last slide. We're just going to throw out, please don't forget, close and lock the pool and spa enclosure to residents if there's a problem on site. If you do this yourself, you don't have to worry about telling us. You don't have to worry about having us come out to open it back up. You're going to prevent somebody from getting hurt or, heaven forbid, drowning on your property. The certified pool operator must be able to respond to the site within 1 hour if we notify you that there's been a problem on site. And this doesn't mean that the certified pool operator can never go on vacation, but it does mean that if we call you at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there needs to be someone available within 1 hour of us calling you to get out there and help us lock up gates or put up temporary fencing or do whatever we need to do. Don't forget to check your water chemistry enough to make sure that your water is safe, that your water chemistry is at safe levels, whether it's 7 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And at a minimum, you have to record these checks at least once per day. Those water chemistry records have to stay on site for a minimum of 2 years, but we recommend keeping them longer because in the state of Texas, if there's a minor child that gets sick or gets hurt on a site, they have until 2 years after they turn 18 to bring a civil suit against you. So keeping those records and maintaining them is great legal protection for you, evidence that you know what you're supposed to do and that you were doing it. And please don't forget, check your drain covers for their life expectancy. Drain covers do have a life expectancy. It's stamped on the cover itself. If you don't remember, go ahead and replace your drain covers. Don't forget to check your drain covers for damage and push on them a little bit with your shepherd's crook or your net. Make sure that they're not loose, that they're still firmly attached to that floor, and nobody is going to try and pry off your drain cover.
And with that, I'm happy to announce that the 2021 preseason pool safety class for North Richland Hills is officially over. You made it! So what you need to do now is the same website where you found this video. Go find the quiz and print that out, complete the quiz, and then email it back to us at consumerhealth@nrhtx.com. That email's at the bottom of the screen. That way you get credit for completing this class. And again, if we can help you at all, just reach out to us and let us know. Our 24-hour emergency number is also on this slide. And thanks for attending the class this year, guys. We hope that everybody has a safe swimming season.